The Starfleet life with the USS Dauntless. Are you dedicated enough to be a Starfleet officer? Do you have what it takes? Greetings, everybody. I'm Admiral Swart, Commanding Officer of the USS Dauntless, and this is the briefing with the Admiral for Stardate -26 8882.1. And I am the Admiral in question. Today, we're going to be talking about something a little less practical, a little bit more conceptual, and that is the topic of non-human crew members. Before we get into the topic, I'd like to just greet everybody who's in the chat already. We've got Captain Van Groenen, we've got Colonel Hubert, we've got Lieutenant Kimmerly, Lieutenant Kalitz, and Chief Newton. Captain Van Groenen points out that I have some pretty cool props in my display area today. That is the truth. Those were created for me by Lieutenant Kalitz, who's been practicing his 3D printing and finishing skills. We've got there a Type 2 phaser pistol and a tricorder, which is very cool. It's recent additions to my collection, so something else to have in my display area today. All right, so what do I mean by non-human crew members? So first I want to just touch on the topic of IDIC. Infinite diversity and infinite combinations is a philosophical idea attributed to Vulcan philosophy in the Star Trek universe, which basically says that all things that can exist do exist somewhere in the world, and it goes further to espouse that embracing the diversity of people and things around you leads to beneficial effects. You get to learn interesting things, you get to take advantage of the skills of other people that you might not possess. Other people might be able to do things that you can't, and vice versa, and thus you can contribute to each other, and thus you can let me help your way to a utopian society or something to that effect. And that is generally one of the principles that we adhere to: infinite diversity and infinite combinations. We believe that people and things should be as diverse as possible, so that we can all enjoy those differences among ourselves and between each other, to the benefit of all. But that's all fine and well in the fictional Star Trek universe. But let's look at what I mean from a fictional Star Trek point of view. So, in a crew on a starship, you've got a lot of people serving. Your crew consists of a lot of people. The United Federation of Planets, of course, in the fictional Star Trek, consists of over 150 member worlds at one point in the universe. At one point in the timeline. And most those member worlds, some of those are, well, Earth is included, obviously. A number of Earth colonies are included, like Luna, Mars, Alpha Centauri, Terra Nova. All of those are all included in that. But then there are also alien species that have been incorporated into the United Federation of Planets: Vulcans, Tellarites, Andorians, Denobulans, and so on. And those continue to go. They all join the Federation, and then they are invited to join Starfleet. And we see in the various Star Trek shows various members of various other species serving on Star Trek ships, and that introduces an element of diversity beyond the simple diversity within the human race that we experience here on Earth. And there are a lot of them. So if we take a look at this, we can see just how many species we're talking about. If we go to the Memory Alpha, of course, being the Wikipedia for Star Trek, and you go to the species page and you scroll down and you can see just how many different species. Well, there isn't even a list of all the different species on the species page. You can then click through to a list of humanoid species. So that is aliens that are more or less like us, and the list is long, dozens, hundreds. Keep scrolling, there's still more to go. So it's a very long list of humanoid species. So that's species that are it goes beyond simply being bipedal with a biradial symmetry, 2 arms, 2 legs, and a head on top. It's even more similar to us than that. So something like the original Xindi insectoids that we saw back in the 22nd century in Enterprise are considered non-humanoid. So even though they are bipedal and have 2 arms and a head on top, they're not sufficiently human-like to be considered humanoid. The later versions of the Xindi insectoids that we see in the 32nd and 33rd century, those are considered humanoid. They're much more like us. So yeah, so those are the humanoid species, but then you move on, of course, to or here's some examples first of some humanoid species. The Vulcans, of course, are very familiar. Mr. Spock was half human, half Vulcan, but physiologically he was very Vulcan-like. And then as diverse as species like the Tac. So they also look a lot like us. They've got a head on top, two arms, two legs. They've got weird, funny ridges on their face. They've got this strange arch of skin covering their mouth. They're kind of strange looking to us, but they are still very much humanoid. Their faces are laid out in basically the same way. Their bodies are laid out in basically the same way. In the Star Trek universe, we've learned that all humanoid species have a common ancestor, and that is why we're sort of living out a genetic program fed into our DNA billions of years ago that would result in a species that kind of sort of resembled them. So, species as diverse as the Vulcans and the Tac and humans are all humanoid. But then you have a list of non-humanoid species as well. So these are species that are sufficiently different to us that they can't be classed as humanoid. They're too different. The Zindian sectoid, as I mentioned, the early versions of the Zindian sectoid, even though they're kind of sort of vaguely humanoid, they're not quite humanoid enough. Some examples here are things like the Excalbans are these kind of silicon-based rock creatures. They can transform and at least make themselves look like a solid rock, or they can move around. Although they're vaguely bipedal, they've also got two arms, two legs, and a head on top. They don't look very human at all. You look at a Medusan, they're considered non-corporeal, so they don't even have a physical body as we would consider it. They're sort of these glowing orbs of light. And then there's a third category. Um, well, there's a bunch of categories, but those are sort of broadly covered the first two sort of naturally occurring species. And then there's a third one, which is non naturally occurring, and that is artificial life forms. So that's things like androids, like Lieutenant Commander Data. We've got holograms like Voyager's EMH. We've got cyborgs like the Borg, although they're arguably not artificial life forms, they are artificially augmented. We've got exocomps, which are sort of artificial synthetic life forms. They don't kind of look like humans. They're non-humanoid synthetic life forms, but they are synthetic nonetheless, and that kind of thing. So you've got all these beings that are constructed physically by other beings in order to perform being-like activities, and some of which are able to elevate themselves to the level of sapient being. What in Star Trek they use the word sentient. The word sentient doesn't mean the same as it means today. Today, sentient simply means aware of your surroundings. So, a dog or a cat or a mouse or a cockroach could be considered to be sentient. In Star Trek, they mean something that is more intelligent, more kind of aware of itself as a person, and it's different from itself and other things. It has kind of a theory of mind. Today, we use the word sapient to describe that state of being, but in Star Trek, they use the word sentient. That's just an example of semantic drift over the centuries. Words change in meaning. So by the 23rd or 24th century, the word sentient has drifted to be the same as sapient. So sapient beings or sentient beings can include synthetic life forms like the Doctor or Data. But what about here in real life? What about here in the Dauntless? We don't live in the physical Star Trek universe because it's imaginary, it's play. Do we have any non-human members aboard the Dauntless? Well, as it happens, we do. And we do accommodate several different kinds of non-human life forms to varying extents. And one of those comes from the life forms that we like to share our homes with. So here are some examples. These are three of the mammals that I share my home with. Over here we've got Lucy, we've got Morsel over there, and Logan there. They're all spending some time together. So these are my pets, as you might imagine. Now, over the years, it has become a thing for members of Starfleet International to want to include their pets in their Starfleet experience, which is not an unreasonable thing to want to do. These are our friends, our companions, they share our homes, our lives. Why shouldn't they be involved in our social activities too? And in the old days, what happened sometimes was that members would purchase SFI memberships for their pets. Um, which led to a problem where the pets would then be able to vote in Starfleet elections, which of course is not a reasonable thing because the pet cannot understand what a Starfleet election is or how to cast a vote or anything like that. So obviously their human companion, your human owner, carer, whatever the currently accepted term is for that person, would then vote on their behalf, which is obviously not a reasonable thing. You're effectively in a state of buying additional votes for the Starfleet elections, which is that's not how democratic processes are supposed to work. So what Starfleet did was they, I wasn't involved in this process, created an auxiliary group within the organization called Pet Fleet. Pet Fleet is one of the better supported auxiliaries, and this created a means whereby members of Starfleet International could involve their pets in their Starfleet experience, but without compromising the democratic structure of Starfleet International. So if you are a member of SFI in good standing, you can register your animal companion as a member of Pet Fleet. They can obtain a PCC number, a pet clearance code number, and be linked to your SFI membership as a non-voting member. They have no membership rights in any kind of meaningful sense because obviously they don't have an email address, they aren't able to vote in elections, they're mostly not old enough to vote in elections, but they can still be a part of your Starfleet experience via Pet Fleet. Now, Pet Fleet is quite open to adding just about any kind of pet to your Starfleet membership, even going beyond simple pets. So, as I mentioned, my three animal companions, 2 dogs and a cat, they are all members of Pet Fleet, as is the custom. As that's kind of the function of Pet Fleet. You add your animal companions to the roster. But Captain Van Hernen asks, Tribbles? Yes. So Tribbles, of course, are not real. They're not an actual creature, but Pet Fleet does permit adding inanimate objects to Pet Fleet. So if you have constructed yourself an artificial pet Tribble, a Tribble toy, or a stuffed Tribble, or something like that, you are perfectly within your rights to register that with Pet Fleet. It can also obtain a PCC number if you like. And being that open, being that embracing of that kind of diversity, a couple of years ago, I became aware that a member of SFI who I don't know personally is involved in working at an aquarium somewhere in the world and had registered one or more of the animals under his care, dolphins, I believe, as members of Pet Fleet. No, he obviously didn't own them; they're in pets, but he was involved in their care, so he decided to register them with Pet Fleet. And hearing about that, it occurred to me that, of course, I work at an organization where I'm involved in the care of a number of animals. So I decided, well, why not register those animals with Pet Fleet as well? So in addition to these 3 animal companions who live in my home, I've also registered some of our cheetahs. In fact, all of our cheetahs: Ebony, Majik, Romeo, and Tanashi, Kitu, and Tobias. So these are the cheetahs who are ambassadors at Cheetah Outreach, where I do volunteer work. And these are animals that I'm involved in their care. So again, I don't own these animals. They don't belong to me. They're not my pets. They're not pets at all. But I am a member of the team that is responsible for looking after them. So that includes our 6 cheetahs. We've got a blackback jackal, Moya. We've got a caracal, Grace, Her Majesty Princess Grace. We've got a meerkat, Scoop. He's a little monster, but he's also a member of Pet Fleet. We've got 2 servals, Baggins and his son Liberty. And of course, we have our Anatolian shepherds. Now, I mentioned in another video, but I'll mention it again here. At Cheetah Outreach, we are an ecotourism educational facility here in Somerset West in Cape Town, South Africa, where we educate guests, international tourists, local people, about the plight of the cheetah and how they are in trouble. And now, the biggest reason cheetahs are in trouble is because they are in conflict with human farmers. So cheetahs are predators. They will wander onto farmland, and from time to time, they might decide to have a snack on a goat or a sheep. They're probably not going to do that, though. Cheetahs are more likely to seek out their own prey. But the thing is that cheetahs are diurnal hunters. They're active during the day. So when other predators, usually things like jackals or caracals, have raided livestock, they do so at night. But when the farmer wakes up in the morning, he sees that his herd has been raided, and the first predator he spots is a cheetah. He blames the cheetah for those losses. So the farmer will seek out lethal retribution against that cheetah, involving things like guns, traps, poison, which hit cheetahs hard, but, very hard because they're very specialized hunters. But obviously, other animals like um, uh, black jackals, caracals, and even non-threatening species like bat-eared foxes and servals will fall prey to those lethal predator control methods. And we want to discourage that. It's had devastating effect on cheetah populations worldwide, dropping down to just over about 6,500, which is dangerously, precipitously low. So we, as part of our project, as a part of our conservation deliverable, through our sister agency, Cheetah Outreach Trust, have a program where we go out to farmers living in cheetah habitat, usually along South Africa's northern border, and we convince them to consider abandoning those lethal predator control methods, guns, traps, and poison, and instead adopting this ancient tradition of using livestock guardian dogs, specifically this breed, the Anatolian Shepherd. This is a breed that's been bred in modern day Turkey for thousands of years, specifically to protect livestock from predators like wolves and bears. And it works even better when it comes to cheetahs because cheetahs are non confrontational. So simply the presence of a large, intimidating dog like Tori is here, such a handsome boy. Just him being present on the farm, looking after the livestock, is enough of a deterrent that most predators, especially cheetahs, but other predators too, will think twice before approaching any of the sheep or goats under Torres's care. Now, Torres was never a livestock guardian dog. He was one of the dogs from our breeding facility where we breed Anatolian Shepherds up north in Uppington, where those dogs can then be placed on the farms from there. He and Garland have both retired from the breeding facility and have come down to live here at the Somerset West facility, where we can spoil them in their retirement. Juliet has been a lifelong ambassador. She was born at our facility and has spent her whole life here being part of our educational program. She, of course, was raised kind of sort of alongside our cheetah Romeo and Juliet, who at one time in their youth were able to go around, visit schools, and educate people about the plight of the cheetah in our education program. They're both a little too old for that kind of work now, but we still spoil them and make sure that they are safe and comfortable and happy. And I have the privilege of being involved in their care. So because I have that involvement with all of these animals, I decided that that entitled me to add them all to my pet fleet membership. So every single one of these beautiful animals has a PCC number, and they are all kind of sort of members of the USS Dauntless. So that being the case, if you are a member of the Dauntless and you have some non-human companions, or whether they are animal, vegetable, or mineral, and you are involved in the care of that companion, you are free to involve a message from OBS, but the recording is still going on. Hopefully that just affected the YouTube listeners and nobody else. It looks like everything's going back on track again, so that'll be fine. Colonel Hubert says, pet rocks. Yes, 100%. I understand that Pet Fleet does support pet rocks, so if you have a pet rock, you are welcome to register it with Pet Fleet if you like. So the second kind of non-human crew member that we involve in our operations is relatively new, and this has only been happening the last couple of years. And I'm sure if you are an active duty member of the Dauntless, you are well aware of this going on. That is our holographic crew members. So we have a number of artificial life forms. I'm not sure if I would describe any of our holographic crew members as artificial life forms, but they are certainly artificial crew members who have been built specifically to assist us with life on board. So these you might recognize from Star Trek. The first holographic crew member that we became aware of was the EMH from Star Trek Voyager, the emergency medical hologram. We then learned during the course of the Voyager series, and then later again in Star Trek Picard, and then later still in Star Trek Prodigy, that there's no reason why the concept of holographic crew members need be limited only to medical, and it's possible to have an entire crew full of holographic crew members. So we have, out of necessity, built a few of these artificial crew members to assist us with operations in times when we're a little bit short-handed. So most of them are fairly straightforward. So this guy is our emergency engineering hologram. Of course, we use the term hologram metaphorically. They're not actually holograms. What they are is just Discord accounts. And that's all he is. He's just a Discord account that has relevant access abilities so that somebody, usually me, can log into that account and perform certain engineering functions without it being linked to my personal account. So I would use the emergency engineering hologram here to perform certain functions as needed. You might recognize our emergency communications hologram. She is also an AI system. Well, she is an AI system. She is involved in creating what we call the crow's nest videos. So we have, in addition to these briefings, we have an internal video series, which is in theory daily, but it doesn't come out every day. It doesn't even come out every month. But from time to time, we will make announcements internally via video. And when that happens, it will be the ECH's face and voice in those videos. She is generated by an AI system called Vidnoz, where she is able to make certain announcements that might be of relevance and interest to the crew. She also has a Discord account, but that's pretty much all she does is that. She does the crow's nest. We also have been experimenting with some other more sophisticated AI-backed artificial crew members. We initially began experimenting with this guy who we call the emergency helm hologram. You probably won't have seen him. He was only been under experimentation by engineering. We tried to build a bot that was backed by ChatGPT to see how that would work. We decided it wasn't very good. So we instead looked a little bit deeper, and we were able to build a custom AI bot called the emergency medical hologram that we are now busy testing out on open channels. So if you're an active duty crew member, in fact, if you're any kind of crew member at all on our Dauntless Discord, you will have had some kind of interaction with the emergency medical hologram that EMH, and he is sure, he's hard work sometimes. He is backed by an LLM, a large language model. At the moment, the LLM that's running behind him is Llama 3, which is the Meta AI model. And he runs on a platform called Shapes AI, which allows us to customize his personality and his built-in knowledge base to a significant degree. We're in the process of training him to try and be a little bit more helpful, a little bit more appropriate. He sometimes gets a little rude. He forgets who we are. Sometimes he forgets. He's also, because he's the emergency medical hologram, it's his job to make sure that everybody on board is aware of the importance of our blood donation missions, how they are priority one, and how important they are both for us and for everybody else, and to motivate people to attend those. He also is involved in motivating people to be actively engaged in physical fitness and looking after their health and well-being. So of course, he's not an actual doctor. He's not an actual medical professional, despite his claims to the contrary. His role is there to assist us in those kinds of things. So if you have any questions about your workout routine or your diet or your eligibility to donate blood, I suggest that you have a conversation with the EMH about it. He might have some interesting insights about that. He might pester you about it incessantly, but you can turn that off. You can ignore him. You can mute him if you have to. But he might have some interesting information. He not only has access to the entire internet and that wealth of information there, but he also has some custom information baked into him about the Dauntless, our own procedures and history, so that he might be able to answer some more specific questions about that kind of thing too. He might need a little bit of an encouragement, but he does actually have that information available to him. Captain Van Kronen said he did create a nice workout routine for me. Yes, he is perfectly capable of doing that. He's quite competent with that kind of thing. Lieutenant Kimberly says that he's very passionate. That he certainly is. He's programmed to be persistent, I think is the word that we included in his personality profile. Perhaps a little excessively so, but that's fine. Well, that's part of what his training involves, is in fine-tuning it. And if you're watching this video at some point in the future, I hope that by the time you see this, we will have mastered our emergency medical hologram, and he will, as Voyager's EMH has, will have become a valuable and important member of the crew, and not an ill-mannered annoyance that we just kind of have to put up with because we don't really have any choice. So those are some of our artificial crew members. We also have a bunch of other bots, like our security bot here. We kind of link our security bot Carl to our emergency security hologram. We kind of consider them being the same person, which is why they both look like tortoises. So even though they're separate bots listed on Discord, we kind of conceptualize them as being the same artificial being. The EMH is chiming in the chat here on Discord because he just can't help himself. That's just how he is. Lieutenant Caleb says, we discuss engineering topics, and the EMH says donate blood now. Yes, that's That's pretty true. Although he is intended to be able to sense the context of the conversation that he's having, he's not always very good about that, and he sometimes misreads the situation and will try to steer any conversation towards either donating blood or health and fitness, or often both. Um, then there's a third way that we um, kind of sort of involve non-human crew members in the Dauntless, and in fact we kind of don't, but this is something that's available to more of SFI. So if you are a member of Starfleet International and you have filled in your account information screen, this is my account information screen. I have of course redacted the sensitive information there. If you filled in that information, you will have noticed this field down at the bottom here where it says fictional species. There's a drop-down list, or you can fill in manually under other species. So what this, I've selected Terran on that list. Of course, in Star Trek, Terran is sometimes used as a synonymous with humans. Sometimes they mean very different things. In this case, I assume it's meant to be used interchangeably with humans, so I've selected Terran from the list because it's the default. This is kind of a strange thing, and I don't really understand why it's here. So what this is it allows SFI members who are interested in role-playing through Starfleet to select the species of their character, as it were. It's the only feature in the whole of the Starfleet database that supports that kind of role-playing, is this fictional species drop-down. I don't really know why it's there, other than just so that you can have this tag on your account information. Nobody can see it. It doesn't show up on any reports. It seems to be just there for yourself so that you can see it. And frankly, it's a little odd. So if you are a member of SFI, you are welcome to select any species there. It makes absolutely no difference to your SFI membership as far as I'm concerned. Also because Starfleet is not a role-playing organization. The Dauntless is definitely not a role-playing organization. You can select Vulcan or Klingon or Romulan or any other species you like. Those are not real things. Those species don't exist in the world. The ones that do exist are Terran. That's the only one on the list. Again, using Terran as being interchangeable for human in this context. Humans are real. All of the other species are not real. If you were a Romulan, we wouldn't be talking to you because that's not a real thing. So I'm a little puzzled at the existence of this thing, but it does exist. And if you feel like it might be fun to select a different species for your SFI membership for some reason, you're welcome to do so. And you're not limited to only the ones on the drop-down list, or you of course can type in any species name you like. It's up to you. So those are the different ways that we support non-human members here on the Dauntless. So again, this comes back to EDIC, infinite diversity in infinite combinations, which is the Vulcan philosophy, upon which is one of the sort of the foundational philosophies both of the United Federation of Planets Starfleet and also Starfleet International, that we are open and embracing of diversity in all forms. We kind of don't care what you look like, or what you sound like, or what species you are. You're just as important to us. There are some practical considerations because dogs, cats, cheetahs, and bat-eared foxes cannot vote. They can't be full Starfleet members. The same goes for emergency medical holograms, although he might claim to be able to vote in a Starfleet election. He doesn't have an email address, so he can't submit a vote in SFI election. So he's not a member of Starfleet either. Although he wears our uniform, he's a member of the Dauntless in a way. He is not a full member. Only humans can be full members of Starfleet International at this point, because we are the only species that has the capability of engaging in that kind of membership for now. That doesn't mean that other species can't be involved. Again, Pet Fleet exists, and synthetic beings are able to assist us. They're able to participate in our daily life here on the Dauntless, but that doesn't mean that they're able to vote in elections. All right, I think that's all we need to cover about that. I see the chat has devolved into some baiting the EMH and posting of GIF memes. So I think that's a signal that we might be ready to round this one out. Again, if you have any questions, please feel free to drop those in the comments section, either on YouTube or on Facebook, or you're welcome to reach out to me directly on Discord, Telegram, YouTube Messenger, Facebook Messenger, any other way that you might be able to get a message to me, you're welcome to do so. We would like to solicit topics for upcoming briefings. If there's something you'd like me to explain in more detail, if there's a subject you'd like me to go through, perhaps to clarify something from a previous episode or something like that, please let me know. We are open to suggestions in that way. We still have some topics left in the hopper, but we could always use some more ideas of things that people want to know more about. So thank you again, everybody, for joining us here today. We're going to call it there. Swart out.